hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
I'm talking.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Hello?
That's good.
It says on. Was it off? What's that? I think it does say on. Anyway. All right. So, yeah, since it's such a big topic, we figured out what we might want to talk about today is to think about the games that are already out as opposed to the games in development, and think about how we can actually grow. What can we do to these users so that they will start paying more? To get it started, I think it would be nice to have an idea of who we are, what we do, and also the in-app purchases strategies, especially to grow it. What kind of team setup you have? Whether you work with a game team or you work with sort of DI team where you consult and advise different game teams. So, please.
Should I go first?
Yes.
All right. Let me again introduce myself. My name is Volkan, and I'm the director of product at GREE. I'm hoping to offer a unique view of point to you guys today, because at GREE we both have like a business intelligence team, a centralized business intelligence team, which is helping like the product teams out. So I used to lead the business intelligence team and also helping with the ad monetization. But I have recently moved to the product team, so hopefully I can offer a unique perspective on both ends. So as you mentioned, I think the organizations have two approaches. Like one of it is just like having a product team that owns the entire data process, and in some other organizations you have the business intelligence team, which is more central, and that is supporting like different game teams or studio teams. GREE is closer to the latter one. We had a central business intelligence team, but one thing that I think that was unique to us is, which is still unique, our business intelligence people were uniquely selected, such that they were able to step up as data product managers. So probably that role doesn't really exist anywhere else. But what it means is that like people who are close to data, they probably have the unique understanding and perspective of how players actually consume the game, probably better than the product managers, or traditional product managers. And the reason is that like once you get really attached to the game, it's really hard to step back and have like an objective view of how players are consuming your game. You are probably have seen the tutorial maybe 1,000 times. You have probably seen your in-app purchase bundles 1,000 times. Can you really offer a unique perspective? I doubt it. That's why this data product manager role is unique. Like these people can take an objective look at data, can figure out how players are actually consuming it, and can come up with like really good insights and recommendations that you cannot probably just get from customer insights. So that's how we operate at GREE.
My name is Deniz. I work for FunPlus. It's a vision-based company, around 410 people. We have an office in SF. I'm tied to the SF office as studio lead. We have about 35 people. I've been in gaming about 7 years. Worked at Sega, Idle Games, Gazillion, Machine Zone, and now at FunPlus. I've been always in the start of my career, I was always in the product side of things. I was the executive producer, but now, about last 3.5 years, I've moved to more performance marketing, LTV forecasting, BI and analytics. So I think I have that perspective. But in FunPlus, we do have a centralized BI team, and we have in total 13 people. 6 people is data engineers, and 7 people is data analysts, which is tied to the game team. So it is quite unique in its sense. We do have our analysts go to the product meetings every day and basically provide insights or any kind of updates, what's going on with data. And it's been working quite good so far.
My name is Eddie Siegel. I'm actually subbing for my colleague James Holloway from Sega Networks. I'm a product team lead at Sega, and after shipping a couple of titles, top grossing at Zynga, and doing marketing and pricing consulting for a little bit before that. At Sega, the product teams are directly responsible for the monetizations of the game, and they are in bed with the game teams from the very beginning. With that, though, comes interfacing with our BI and what we call our content lab, our game team, our internal central team responsible for competitive insights, shared both here and our offices in Japan. It's important for us to make sure we're keeping a constant eye on the market, and that combination of the product team, the competitive insights team, and our analytics BI team is really integrated to make sure our games are consistently iterating on their designs, iterating on live ops, and making sure our games are doing as much as they possibly can to monetize.
Hi, I'm Dan. I was in the Blue Bottle coffee line, which is what I was doing. What was the question?
Also, beyond that, if you could tell us a little bit about how the responsibility of growing enough purchases, how that's located within the organization.
Tell us who you are.
Right.
Right. Hi, my name's Dan Barnes. I work for Natural Motion, now part of Zynga. I'm head of acquisition, retention, and monetization across the entire portfolio. The way that it works at Natural Motion has changed recently with a lot of impact. It feels like everyone was a Zynga hit at some point in this talk. But the way that we've changed recently has obviously been influenced by Zynga. The way that the team is set up is that there are, each one of the games has an individual core product analyst plus a monetization PM, a live ops PM. So product managers that run specific areas of the game. Live ops for us has become incredibly important as for all mobile titles. And it's one of the things that we've focused on most and learned most from Zynga recently in the last year since the acquisition. My role is twofold. I spend 50% of the time on third-party external acquisition, retention, monetization, things like user acquisition, paid engagement, and ad monetization, and 50% of my time on maintaining a playbook and making sure that best practices are shared across multiple SKUs, multiple products, in terms of game intrinsic acquisition, retention, and monetization. Things like social integration, like Viva was talking about words of friends earlier. Also retention in terms of Fatui, making sure that we predict churn, all of those other things, and then monetization in terms of economy balancing, PvP, gacha, and making sure that all of those things are aligned for a common brand pillar, basically.
Thanks. I guess the first sort of actual topic that we'd like to talk about is thinking about, when you think about growing enough purchases, obviously you can try to grow number of paying users. So you can try to increase the percentage, try to give them opportunities or make it more tempting. Or another way to think about it is you already have paying users. How can we encourage them to spend more? If you could just sort of give us an idea about which one you think is more important, or given a choice, which one would you think about first?
I mean, they are both equally important, I think, because depending on the maturity of the game, it'll probably be around 60% of your revenue comes from the first-time purchasers, and 40% will come from the existing users, and then over time it will change and it will skew more to the existing users. But it is both sides is very important. So, the way that I think to increase, let's say, the conversion or repurchase is actually understand who is purchasing, or who is repurchasing, or why they are repurchasing, or why they are purchasing, right? So it is not just age, gender, and what location they are coming from. It's more into that. What's the event that's making them purchase, right? So I've been looking at it in a way that I divided it into 4 different places. And first one is very obvious. It's the wallet size, or the amount of hard currency that is left in the wallet. The second one that I think of is the fluctuation in the resources. So And the resources by I mean is the soft currency, whether it's soft currency, whether it's wood, stone, or whatever you have in your strategy game as a soft currency or as a resource. And the third one is space, right? You can run out of space or you can run out of storage. That's where we see people are making purchases. So, and the fourth one is time, right? People buy time, people skip things. So you need to kind of understand, you need to have the data points and triggers to be able to actually track these events, right? You need to make like an intelligent observation and say, okay, my first time purchases falls into resource fluctuation. If a person loses more than 60% of their resources in a given session, their likelihood of purchase increases by 80%. So you need to have the data to be able to actually say this, right? It's much easier said than done. So I think that's what I think when, and this goes both in first-time purchases and repurchase, right? So
I think building on you, I totally agree. I think the aspect that mobile gaming is not very good at, and I only can speak for the side that we are active in, is segmentation of the user base to put in front of those users what they actually require at any given moment in their progression path, right? If you can find, because there'll be naturally engineered pinch points in the title, right, which are relevant moments, as you said, but via those four categories to push in-app purchases. The game in itself will also have a natural economy that has a natural pinch point evolution, right? So there are two sides to the pinch points, but people, depending on how they behave in the title, will encounter those pinch points in varying degrees of intensity and also at varying points in the progression, right? So what you need to do is actually stop thinking about a one-size-fits-all model where you have to balance between average revenue per paying user and first-time conversions, right? You want both. You want, for your high-converting people that are engaging the title, you want to increase repeat conversion. And for the people that are learning the title at the beginning, you want to increase first-time conversion to get them onto that conveyor belt up to revenue, right? And the issue here is that a one-size-fits-all model within a natural economy doesn't work. It can't work, right? It's not possible. And mobile commerce and e-commerce have learned this time and time again, and mobile gaming is lagging behind massively. And I think segmentation is key to pushing that.
Just to add one more thing, so I think your game or your app needs to be flexible enough to be able to provide customized experiences to segments, right? And what I mean by that is exactly to Dan's point. So if you know 20% of your customers are coming from US, they are between 18 and 25, they're males, and that makes their score to likely to purchase much higher than the existing other customers, then you should be able to provide them a different experience, not in a sense that it is totally different than what other people are playing, but that's an experience that is maybe more enticing to purchase certain things. And on the repurchase path, you can look at things like what they purchased already, and also bundle that up with where they're coming from, how long do they play, and how many sessions a day they play. So you can really customize their experience, but your game, your app needs to be able to do this. We've been going back and forth with the developers, and I don't want to really get into a product discussion or a design discussion, but you should be able to do this with your app or game, and it needs to be flexible enough.
One word I don't think we say enough in these conversations is fun. It's much easier to optimize on a fun game, a game that players are enjoying and really like playing, than one that's not. I've seen titles with two similar starting metrics, but one was a lot more fun than the other, and that was a lot more upside to increase metrics. We obviously like to see games that are fun and reflect that in their retention and their monetization, but at the core, you need to make sure that the systems that you are optimizing give value to the players, and that instead of seeing this as conversion, seeing this as revenue per player, you're actually delivering the sustainable value to players across their lifetime as they're engaging, not just with your own product, but your family of product that your entire company is delivering.
And I actually agree with Deniz and Eddie in terms of how important it is to, first of all, understand your users, understand your customers. We have already talked about segmentation a bit. The other piece that I think it will be helpful to do is to actually understand the cluster of users. You can actually define different personas playing your game. Imagine you are talking about a strategy title. who are those guys making the first purchases that are actually into building, constructing, who are into research, who are into fighting, who are into whatever aspect you have in your game. Can you come up with those clusters? And can you actually create some emotional disturbance, I will say, or emotional excitement about what they first purchased? What is the most enticing thing in your game that will make people purchase? I think those are like really key questions that, like, first product people need to ask themselves, and second, you definitely need to get your analytics side or like BI people to help you out to understand those questions and give the best enticing rewards. So one thing that I've seen in terms of like percent standard and in terms of like the percent standard is actually pretty easy to control. If you think about it, like you need to figure out like what kind of game you have first of all. Is this a casual game? Is this a strategy game? Is this a hardcore game? If it's a casual game, maybe your price points are too high. I mean, I've seen like by making like a simple price point change, you can simply convert maybe 30% more players right away as a first time spender. The second one is, as Deniz mentioned before, like the age of the game. Is this like a mature game? How long this game has been out? Like, what are your live ops like targeting? Are they targeting new players, old players? These are all like the questions you need to ask to yourself. But in terms of like the overall idea, I think like you need to both think about the percent standard as well as kind of like the volume of the spending. So I think both are equally important.
Sure. Sounds like everyone is into segmentation and you do different things to different people.
Right.
And then I guess I have a question about, I feel like there's generally an idea about people who are players and who are not. Before how good the game is, for example. There are certain people who just will never pay, which is very most people. And there are people who are very willing to pay, and then it's middle somewhere, only pay if the game is really good. But these lines that I think about, how sort of rigid do you think this line is? How easy or possible it is by your strategy to move somebody from dependent non-payer to maybe payer, maybe payer to definitely payer? How do you conceptualize those lines?
That's basically looking at data, right? Everybody has, let's say, you're not currently doing this, but in my last 6-7 years in gaming, we've done things like we've scored players on certain actions of games. So if you can define your triggers or events, let's say 15 to 18 events to score your players, you know who is more likely to purchase, or you know who is more likely to churn. So you just need to decide on the event that you wanna compete against. That I put it in a way, compete or run against, and you do certain things. You do A/B testing. You do, let's say, I'll give an example. Let's say if you know a person is more likely to churn as their session time reduces by 15 seconds every day, or 30 seconds every day, or 15% every day, you might want to give them a special quest that might keep them around for a while, and maybe you might want to give them even hard currency to keep them around for a while. But those are all cases of that comes out after looking at the data, because all the players will have a pattern, right? They will fall into one cluster, right? And if they don't, we will call them abnormalities. But most of your players, about 90%, 95%, will fall into a cluster. So you can move them from cluster to cluster. You just need to find out how to move them or what makes them tick, right? So
I think one of the really important things about this is defining the win criteria for each one of those segments, right? Because there is intrinsic value outside of IAP for certain areas of the products, right? That moving them from one place to another might still give them incremental value, and it will be accretive, while not actually moving them close enough to the thing. And also, retention and engagement are a precursor for revenue, right? So if you can get someone engaged or retained for a longer period of time, the percentage chance that you will convert is higher. So you just need to define the win criteria, what success looks like, right, for each one of those segments, and then move them forwards based on that success metrics. It is possible to do. It is very difficult, and there are segments that are super hard to get into, and there are other ones that are easier. First-time conversion is the hardest gate to crack, right? Getting someone from a non-payer to a payer is really hard. Repeat conversion historically has been a lot easier to encourage. So getting someone over that finishing line the first time is actually a really hard thing to do. And that is probably where you're going to have most of your value in terms of moving someone across a line. But that doesn't mean that the other segments don't have intrinsic value to them. That's a fun game, right? You need to make sure that your product entertains the user base to a point that, Deniz and I both worked at a company a little while ago, and the value of a social player in that game is enormous, right? Because if the game feels dead, or if the game feels empty, there's no bait for the high-level players, and so actually you have a system where those low-level players that aren't paying still have intrinsic value to the game, and to the economy, and to everything else. So I think you just need to define the win criteria for each one of those segments and make sure that you're aware of those things.
I think that's a great point, not just sort of the win criteria, but you're actively designing your game from the start to engage these different types of players. Having top high-level content that can be heavily engaged with and non-exhausted by your most engaged, whether heavily engaged non-payers or perhaps more lightly engaged payers, and that you have these multiple interacting loops to always make sure that when someone comes into your title, they have something to do and their time can be spent productively. Because the easiest way to lose your opportunity to convert someone is that they have nothing to engage with. And I think you made a great point in the fact that the value of non-payers to these games, that almost every